Chris.
And my name's Kristie.
Podcast.
What are you doing?
It's back to basics week. I don't need to do the rest of it. That's faff.
Just
okay, Chris,
so we go...
Podcast. Baking. Cook.
Signature.
Exactly. See? That's an easy podcast. This podcast will take us 5 minutes.
Showstopper.
For some of the audience, would be absolutely fantastic. So...
Adrian Starbaker.
Exactly. So
nobody goes home.
Nobody goes home. The end.
Yes.
So yeah, there we go. Well done, everyone. So we'll see you next week. Oh, thank you
you all very much.
No, we should probably do a bit more. So obviously it's back to basics week this week, which I didn't actually mind as a week. Normally I'm not a fan of complete made up weeks. I actually thought this worked quite well.
I think that the theme kept on brief.
Yes.
And that's what I like when a theme gives a very clear kind of what to expect, and you get what you expect and done in a thoughtful way. Like the pie scraper, I thought was great.
Yeah.
You know, pie's basic, but also, you know, there's a lot of scope there for them to go mad.
Especially when you're stacking pies. Again, that comes down to construction and structure. So, look, I really enjoyed the fact that this week we had 3 challenges that were... Again, they when they say basics, and the bakers kept on... only thing that bugged me was the bakers kept on saying, this might be basic for them, but it's not necessarily basic for us. Scones, a base tart recipe, and a pie...
Yeah.
Probably should be pretty basic. So, what they were talking about, and what they wanted to see was, we're going to give you a very basic concept. How do you make it something?
Yeah, and look... It's also like basic Western stuff as well. You know what I mean? Like they're 3 different bakes that are quite common in Western baking.
But
so that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm cool for that.
Exactly.
I like scones, but I'm not a fan of fancy scones.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan
I'm
of
a basic bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And that back to basics. Be as basic as you want, but do it really well and execute well, I think is the thing.
Oh, look, I'm here, like, you know, people going in and putting flavours and shit in their scones, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to serve one up to me, just make it a Cornish tea.
I mean, I do like a berry and white choc scone from...
Yeah, you do.
From Miscellaneous Delight.
Do I?
No. So, exactly. But I prefer a normal scone with cream and jam.
Yep, fresh.
And notice that we are saying scone, because, you know, we're not freaks.
But I like that the only English person in the shed... Oh, no, Darren was... And
Darren said scone.
Maybe it's a north and south thing. You know how there's different...
No, I think Darren's just been out here long enough and Rachel doesn't care. But...
I now need to know. You keep talking...
No, it tends to be just a British pronunciation is scone and the Australian harder pronunciation is scone. And that's where it's sort of a bit different. So obviously this week, and when we talked about it in episode 1, we're not going to dwell on it. Obviously this week, no Cal. Cal wasn't well this week, so we had Natalie Tran. And again, I just want to say it, and I will be saying this, I think, probably for the whole series. Natalie Tran is amazing. I've said this the whole way through, and does an amazing job.
And look, I just want to caveat that it's not that we are ignoring the fact that Cal is not part of the show today, and probably continuing, I'm assuming, as we go on. And that it's very sad. It's more, you know, out of respect for her and out of respect for her family, let's just, you know...
You celebrate when she's there.
Celebrate when she's there
exactly.
and when she's not. You know, like it's, you know, that's... It's still very fresh. Like, I'm still feeling it too. Yes. And I'm, as we all are.
Exactly.
So,
So, let's get into Back to Basics week, shall we? So we start with Elliot.
Yes.
Who cuts to the camera and he goes, I'm so basic, this is my week. Now, I kind of feel... a couple of things. Elliot, you strike me as many things. Basic is probably not one of them. Secondly, extra is possibly more. Secondly...
Next week, extra week.
I'm feeling like the self-depreciating humour tempered the baker gods somewhat. Like the baking gods were tempered by the fact that he was clearly being a bit self-depreciating at the start, and they went, I don't think he means it.
No, this is that sarcasm we've heard one of the other gods talk about.
Now, I've never seen a baker light up at a joke in terms of genuine excitement and wishing it was true as much as Jaden. when Nat announced that it's back to basics week, which means we're going to be living in a tent and foraging for what we can get. And Jaden's like, all right.
I am. He didn't have to say it. He was like, well, that's my week.
Yeah, Jaden is there going, my week. Finally, it's about bloody time. You've all been having shit handed to you for far too long. I'm going out there.
This is it.
Go on. I dare you to find the stuff that I'm going to find. So the signature scones, sweet or savoury, 9 identical with a filling / topping. Yep. 1 hour, 45 minutes. The first thing we hear is back to Elliot again, who, after talking about being so basic, then goes, scones are simple to make. The CWA would disagree. And this is because... No, but they would disagree. Not for them, it's not easy.
Okay.
But they write books to explain it to, probably how they would put it, the dum-dums. And look, I have argued all the way along, and Arvin sort of talks to this in the next bit, and then Lorena and a couple of others. Scones are very much a matter of body heat.
Yeah, look, it's just not overworking them. It's not fucking with your butter. Like, when I learnt to do it, it was like, you don't melt your butter, you basically just crumble it, like you rub it into the flour. And then when I mix the milk in and stuff, it's using a cold knife to do that. Like, I don't use... My hands go nowhere near it after the rubbing.
My father has the sort of, cold-bloodedness of a reptile. And so one of the things that he can bake quite well are scones. Because when he works the dough and when he works the butter in, it doesn't get overly warm. Whereas I can't do that in terms of with my hands, because the second I touch the butter, like, the whole thing is, nah, that's too warm. We're done.
So I was just thinking, because you mentioned CWA. So a couple of my friends are in the CWA, and lo and behold, they're under 50. Like, this is... I know.
How were they allowed in?
You'd be surprised. I think they're trying to get fresh blood in.
Post Flobiocupetus, and they've opened it up a little bit.
Exactly. And they do this great big scone fundraising thing at the Easter show. I don't know if you're aware of. So if you go to the Royal Easter Show in Miscellaneous City, the Sydney Royal Easter Show, that is, and you want to help raise funds for the CWA, who do things like provide, like, if there's bushfires, they usually provide the lunches and meals to the fireys that are out there working, and that, all kinds of things that they do to support.
Yeah.
So, go get a scone and do some good. I'm just saying that, and get a show bag, or just spend your show bag money on scones, and I think you'll get a better deal. Because these days, unless you're getting the Birdie Beetle show bag, which is still good, the rest of them, full of shit. I'm starting to understand what my mum used to, like, moan and bitch about when we were kids.
So look forward to Showbag Week next week, obviously. But Arvin was grating the butter in.
Oh no, I want him to be grinding, and I'm talking about, like, the dance move, because we saw some dancing later on.
We saw some dancing, although we saw Ryan stubbornly refuse, which I thought was hilarious. Now, yeah, he was making the coconut scones, babinga, I think it was. I've probably screwed that up. Lime yuzu curd, though, and rum mascarpone. So,
sounds delicious.
Again, and look, we know that I mentioned yuzu, but again, I've made this point a million times.
You've made peace with yuzu.
I haven't made peace with it. I love yuzu. It's just that I thought it was overused. It hasn't been that overused, so I'm okay with yuzu at the moment.
Yes.
Yuzu and I have an understanding.
Yes.
We have an agreement. As long as it doesn't try to get out of its lane. Something later on, however, will not. Wonder what it could possibly be, folks.
No idea.
So, Aiden. Now, Aiden was going with pineapple and rosemary Hawaiian scones with a soy sauce caramel and bacon crumb.
Bloody hell. That's like a Hawaiian pizza scone.
It feels a little bit...
It's tomato sauce and onion short of a Hawaiian pizza.
If Miscellaneous Delight have not got in touch with him yet to market those in... Like, they will. 100% they will.
Yeah.
But I think that what was interesting for me about this bit here was they did not make a big deal about Adrian using the bacon as a crumb.
There was a pressure point that I was a bit worried about, though.
Yeah, but so they didn't make a big deal out of him using bacon as the crumb. That's that sounds interesting. Later on, when Elliot says he's putting a piece of bacon on it, bacon? Bacon? You're using bacon? That's an interesting decision. Meanwhile, he's literally just said previously, Adrian's like, I'm bacon crumbing this thing. So it was just that was interesting.
What I wanted to say is that I'm just glad that Adrian got rosemary and not the special rosemary that maybe the lawn keeper, Mick Molloy, might have left in the fridge.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's a Cracker Jack reference.
Genuine 1978 prices. Anyway, now this is where we have the conversation where Natalie goes, now Rachel says scone and Arvin. Rachel says things differently, and then Natalie goes, Rachel thinks differently. and we have Stately Beer Manor obviously for Maggie Beer, but we've got Coo Cottage. Coo Cottage is different to Stately Beer Manor.
Hells yeah, there's no dragons.
It's whimsy.
It's whimsy.
It's just whimsy.
It's just everything's miniature.
It's Cockington Green.
It basically is, if there were dragons there, they'd be miniature, but they're just not allowed. There's just no dragons allowed.
There's no dragons allowed anywhere near Coo Cottage.
No.
I really hope, by the way, that
because you'll scare the periwinkles.
I really hope the dragons of Stately Beer Manor, by the way, are enjoying their retirement.
Yeah, it's
Maggie doesn't need the butter hoard, at the moment. So
No.
that's been something that obviously those dragons have gone off to a lovely retirement, and I hope they're enjoying themselves. Maybe we get them back for the Virgies this year. Just bring them back. Maybe they can present some awards.
maybe. I'm sure they will.
I had a great conversation.
What would a dragon do on retirement?
After having to chase obviously after you with the after Big Plum.
Yeah.
Which left no effect on you whatsoever.
No.
But once will Big Plum come up again in a minute, so we'll talk about them then.
Yes.
But obviously, chasing with myself and Nerman chasing after you in that hot air balloon.
Yeah.
We came back afterwards and we had a great chat with the dragons.
Oh, did you? What were they? What was the chat about?
Mostly about footy tipping.
Really?
Yeah, what do you think they do all year round? They tip all football leagues.
So not just AFL and NRL?
No, they tip all football leagues globally. Hurling, they're really into hurling.
Of course they are.
Really. And the Canadian Football League of all things. Not they don't like the NFL, the CFL.
I thought they'd be really into the Welsh football too, being dragons.
Well, they're less into that because they're just mascots.
Oh, okay. They're like, we're being exploited.
Yeah, exactly. They're worried about their brethren. They're a bit more worried about their brethren. For anyone, by the way, who doesn't know what we're talking about with these dragons, go and listen to our Virgies episodes, especially the last Virgies at Stately Beer Manor. It will sort of explain it. Anyway, moving on.
But not us. It won't explain us.
No, it won't.
It'll leave more questions.
So speaking of the CWA, as we were earlier,
Yeah.
Dimmy is making pumpkin scones.
Nice.
But
Yes.
Dimmy was making pumpkin scones by boiling the pumpkin. Now, when Rachel suggested the mix might be a bit wet, she said, "Oh, I didn't think about that." And the problem was, as an educator myself, I couldn't tell at first if it was genuine concern that she hadn't thought about that, or an early career teacher, an early education teacher, who was being very sarcastic, and like someone had come up and gone, "No, we can't do fair. Oh, we might be able to do fairy play today," in a way of going, "No, kid, you're going to nap."
Yes.
But when they cut back to her later on, she went, "I should have baked my pumpkin," and it's like, okay, no, she meant it. She wasn't being sarcastic.
Not a fan of pumpkin scones, just putting it out there.
Pumpkin and ginger scone with cinnamon and
Unnecessary.
nutmeg with pear compote. There's a lot of flavours going on there.
Look, and they all probably work. And I'm just aware of my bias, which is like, don't fuck with the scone. Put the jam on top.
No, exactly.
All these flavours, wonderful. I'm proud of the bakers. You guys do you. I'm trying to get over my bias, and I'm having a hard time building that bridge.
Molly was making sticky date scones with banana caramel and chantilly cream to go with them.
Yep.
Lots of dates being chopped up there.
There were so many dates. It was like Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore movie.
Oh, what with Rob Schneider ruining it? By being really Rob Schneider.
Yes.
Ew. Anyway, moving on. Elliot. So, sorry, Ryan. Sorry, before we do that, better mention Ryan. Peach Melba, vanilla whipped cream, peach jam, and a raspberry curd. Now, at this point, Darren reminded Ryan that raspberry can occasionally be very subtle and make sure that raspberry
It's
punchy. And Ryan said to him, "No, I make this all the time. This is something I love putting on everything. It'll be great." We'll come back to that in a minute. Elliot, maple pecan scones with strawberry compote and, as he put it, A salty surprise.
No.
Not how I would have worded bacon.
No. I mean,
Innuendo.
any bacon, like unless you're a vegan or a vegetarian, but if you're offered bacon, that's a nice surprise. But calling it a salty surprise, you might be expecting a little something different on your scone.
Yeah, lots of cream in
If I pulled over at a roadside cafe on my trip down to various antiquing areas
and
for
you saw a salty surprise. I'm not ordering
coming
it.
with my scone. Oh my god.
I'm not ordering it.
I'm just making it worse.
You really are. I'm not ordering the salty surprise on the menu. I can't imagine there's a lot of menus where they go, what are our options for dessert today? Oh, there's a creme brulee, there's a flourless chocolate cake, and there's a salty surprise. What? Excuse me?
You look out in the kitchen and the chef gives you a little smile.
Chef nods. It's like, take the salty surprise.
It comes in nuts.
It was also interesting that the two judges who were British, who were grew up in Britain as well, were the ones who really took to the Yorkshire accent as well. Like I'd expect the hosts maybe, or Australians to be the ones to make fun of the Yorkshire accent, but no, it wasn't. It was the two Brits.
I think it's kind of like if you're an Australian meeting another Australian, and they've got one of those crazy ass South Australian accents or far north Queensland accents, and I'm talking about white people accents.
Yeah.
We are not going to.
No, we're talking about that.
Yeah.
No.
I guess it could be like that, but we don't really do that in Australia. It's just
Not
kind
really.
of like we just acknowledge that. Okay, you're probably from.
We just notice when weirdos call things, Fritz or
or potato cakes.
Potato cakes. Anyway,
or togs.
We're moving
That's
on.
not too bad. That's
we're
kind of
moving
cute.
on. So Jason was going with a ginger scone with a vanilla chantilly and a passion fruit curd. Jason, what I've worked out about Jason in the 3 episodes so far over the last 3 weeks we've watched him, he really likes ginger. He's a big ginger fan. Favourite Spice Girl? Posh. No.
The one who didn't make it.
Yeah. Oh, no. She married up.
Yeah.
She made it. The bank account says very different. Then Melissa, blueberry jam scones,
Yum.
lemon flavoured. Now, I said blueberry because I wasn't going to say the way she said it because it was very random Norwegian. And we found out that it was random Norwegian because she went to high school in Norway, she went to college in America, and lives here.
And is apparently a spy.
Yeah, although again, loudly announcing that you're a spy is a great way to cover. I think or
is it?
I think it's the best way to cover that you're a spy is to tell everyone loudly you're a spy.
I'm a spy, because what kind of spy would tell you they're a spy?
I'm a spy, everybody.
Yeah.
That's the way to cover it. I thought it was really well. I thought it was well done.
I'd like to see her come to appear on the Thursday Murder Club. And if you guys haven't read those books, read them. I'm getting through them. I wasn't going to because I'm like, it sounds like just boring and old people think. No, it's great. It's wonderful. Do it. Do yourself a favour. Saying.
Thank you, Molly Meldrum.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
get out there and buy this CD.
Now, Arvin at this point confused.
Cassette.
Arvin at this point, he's Peter Andre. Arvin confused me a little bit here because Arvin talked about the fact that he was, yes, I'm feeling the burn with my whisking. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago,
this was his happy place.
He said that whisking was his happy place. Now he's whinging about it. Has the shed turned him? Or was he lying?
There is some crazy whisk stuff. There is a whisk.
What is going on?
There is a whisk-spiracy.
Yeah, let's get into it. So let's get into it here. Because Ryan later on goes, this is my lucky whisk. And
he's teeny tiny.
He was almost just using his hand. It was that close.
It was like one of those whisks that you see, when they do I'm doing mini baking.
And it was a travel camping whisk. Like it comes out of a Swiss Army knife. Fold out, whisk. Little attachment for getting stones out of horses' hooves.
It's the kind where you see in a TikTok someone's cooking some shit for a fucking hamster.
Yeah, exactly.
Teeny tiny whisk.
Exactly. So Ryan's got this teeny tiny whisk. We've then came back, and Melissa again in this episode had her ridiculously large whisk.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to, Arvin, who just apparently loves whisking, or does he? Because he seemed to hate it in this. What's going on with the whisks?
Please tell me we get a shot of someone using a whisk upside down. Like there is just random whiskness going on.
I want someone to
Whisk
produce...
whimsy.
I want someone...
Whimsky.
I know whiskey. It's actually...
It's a whimsky
word.
conspiracy.
So I want someone to produce a whisk on the end of a drill. Not a beater, a whisk on a drill.
Ooh.
Because they're like, this is better than a beater. My drill spins faster than a beater.
Well, surely the Smeg...
Surely Smeg can get on that.
I mean...
Drill attachment.
There is... You'll get to it, but fuck me. Where are the lids for these Smegs?
Well, we'll mention it again here, even though it happens later on in the episode. We'll mention it here again. We mentioned it in the last episode last week. I'm pretty sure we mentioned
sultanas have gone everywhere.
Like when Elliot...
I mean, that you could forgive. You're kind of like, maybe you should have hand-kneaded
those. But in the third challenge...
Yeah.
Like in the third challenge, you had... Poor old Adrian puts everything in the mixer.
And then having to put dough back in because it's
firing. It's firing dough. Give them a lid, Smeg. For the love of all, give them a lid.
It's like pastry shrapnel.
Let our bakers lid.
Which if I'm going to get hit by shrapnel, I'm good with pastry shrapnel.
Now Lorena went with lavender and lemon scones with mascarpone cream and
a fuck ton of dye.
And it was ube ube
it was
ube colouring. But here's the problem. I think she overdid it. And I'm going to say this: I am a lover of the colour purple. Like not the movie. I'm ambivalent on that. But the actual colour of purple is my favourite colour.
Yes.
And I looked at the colour that she was producing and went too much and too far. And it got more iridescent. And, like, I know that it's like, well, it's just colouring, really. But Darren sort of commented in the judging on it. Part of what you do is you eat with your eyes. And if it's a tangy lemon... There's a tangy lemon curd there, but that flavour's being thrown off by the fact you're eating something that's this ridiculous iridescent purple. It can impact the way you taste the food. You eat with your eyes.
Yeah, but Darren, like, how do you choose your Powerade then? How are you going to choose your Gatorade?
I buy lemon lime. It does what it says on the tin. As Jaden comments in the next bit here, everything in Australia is named how it looks. I get lemon lime Powerade. Why? Because it looks like lemon lime.
Fine. But Arctic Blast.
Really... It looks like an Arctic Blast. But I loved...
the Bolt. There was like the Usain Bolt one?
Yeah.
I assume that looks like him after he's gone to the loo.
Anyway.
I don't know.
So Jaden said that, everything in Australia is named how it looks. And look, that desert over there the desert over there is pretty sandy. We're going to call it Great Sandy Desert. Those mountains look blue.
Yeah.
We're going to call them
Blue Mountains.
That reef up there is pretty great. It's a bit of a barrier to stop people getting in, though. We're going to call it
Great Barrier Reef.
Yep. So we do.
That plane only has one tree on it. We're going to call it One Tree Plain.
So
that place has a big ass lake in it and a funny looking building full of roundabouts. We're going to call it Canberra.
Well, it means meeting place. So yeah. But I thought, look, Jaden is right. We do, like he said, this is a eucalypt that looks like strawberries. Strawberry eucalypt. But a gum tray with strawberry gum. What I thought was really, first of all, his flavours were absolutely magnificent in most cases. Lemon myrtle whipped cream with the strawberry gum syrup. However, as much as I love Jaden for promoting these natural flavours and local flavours, doesn't mean the man is above the corporate world as much as he might want to pretend he is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Big Plum.
There is no such thing as Big Plum, you know this. It is just people are discovering the deliciousness of Davidson plum and embracing it and welcoming it into our world. As you should. Get yourself some Davidson plum.
Are you okay?
I'm fine, why?
Just checking. Anyway, but Big Plum is getting to Jaden.
Yes.
So I'm worried about that. This is the second time this series. And yeah.
You're badly mistaken. Don't worry, we'll take you in for deprogramming. And we'll take you in for our special corporate session. Our special introductory free offer. It comes with tea and biscuits. Davidson plum tea. Davidson plum biscuits.
Anyway, the judging. Molly, Darren said that he loved the caramel. Rachel said that she loved the date aroma. That's a sentence. Elliot, they said it looked really fancy. Darren questioned the bacon at the start, but it works. I don't know why he didn't question Adrian's. Rachel wishes that he'd actually put the bacon into the scone. So Rachel's problem with it wasn't the bacon. It was that why isn't it in the dough?
Yeah, she's like, I don't want to be fucking around, adding bacon to my scone. I want it just to be there, ready to go.
Now, Jaden, they said that it looked really pretty, and Darren said that he really loved the flavour and thought it was really good. Now, later on in the judging, when they get to the, before you get to the end of the episode, when they're talking about Jaden possibly being in trouble, Darren goes, the texture of the scones wasn't quite right. At no point did he say the texture of the scones wasn't right. So, was this an imagined thing that happened at the end? It must have been.
Or it was an editing thing?
No, I'm going with the first. You made it
Okay.
up. Now, Lorena, the first thing that Rachel does is looks at it and goes, that's very purple. The curd was smooth, the lemon shines, but they said the colour does mess with the way that you taste it. Adrian, they liked the fact that he went with a different shape. The crumb was soft and tender. The combination of flavours was nailed, but Darren was like, I don't even know why you bothered with the rosemary. I wouldn't have used it.
Did you know that some people think that the Allen's snake lollies are the same flavour and it's the colour that changes your brain?
Which is interesting because remember, the thing, and they talked about this on Australian Taskmaster, is the argument that the pink and the white marshmallows
Are the same flavour.
they are the same flavour.
No, they're not.
They are definitely the same flavour.
There's a hint in the pink.
They are definitely. I have had this conversation with so many people, and there's no one who hedges. You come down on one side of this argument or the other. Marshmallows, the white and the pink ones, are the same flavour.
Well, only to boring people with imaginations, people who have like whimsy in their world and can think pink and taste pink. I don't know.
Let us know, do you taste a difference in the marshmallows or are you normal? Anyway,
Or are you one of the amazing few who appreciate how subtle, how, and it's true, how young women can hear higher pitches than men, generally. I should say boys and girls. And I found this out quite a number of times at school because we'd be sitting in the music room doing music class and there was a really high-pitched noise going on and all of us girls were looking around at each other like, this is really fucking annoying. The teacher and every other guy in the class had no... And so we complained about it and the teacher's kind of like, okay, go have a look. And yeah, we found it. Like the soundboard was fucking up. So I feel, much like iguanas can see more colours, there are just some special people in the world that can taste more flavours.
I wasn't expecting you to cite the vision ability of an iguana in this podcast, and yet here we are.
We are.
Well done.
You're welcome.
Moving on, Dimmy, they said it was a nice spice balance. The ginger chew was nice. However, that puree did make it dense because it was a wetter puree because it was boiled pumpkin.
Yes.
Jason, they said
Sebastian is not always right from The Little Mermaid.
Jason, they said they looked a bit short. The ginger fire was really good, but Darren thought they were a little bit dry. Melissa, simple but elegant, nice texture on the scone. The blueberry with the lemon balanced really well.
Nice.
And look, to be honest,
if I'm going to have a flavoured scone, hers sounds okay.
and for poor Melissa, this was kind of the highlight of her episode. It went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Darren liked the big pieces of peach that were in there. Rachel thought that they were a little bit drier than they possibly could have been. And Darren commented that he thought the raspberry was nice, but again, more oomph. And this has been something that he's made a consistent point about. More. Give it more.
Yeah.
Darren was speechless with the flavour. Rachel loved the balance with the chantilly as well. So, Arvin nailed those scones.
Well done, Arvin.
The technical. We move into the technical,
Yes.
where Natalie talks about the fact that Darren, of course, has the world record for the cutest backflip.
Okay, cool.
I'd like to know who he took the title off.
I don't know. I'm a world record holder.
You are a world record holder, that is true.
Yes, I was in the world's biggest burlesque class this year.
You were indeed.
Up at 4 fucking a.m. because the rest of the world lives in different time zones
How
to
dare
us
they?
poor Aussies, and apparently you can't cater for 8 people.
Why did everyone else not move for you?
You know, middle of fucking winter here.
You
It was
were.
really fucking cold. Anyway,
So anyway, we appreciate your sacrifice.
you're welcome.
Don't get in a scramble and a little wobble were Darren's tips.
Yep. I mean,
Chocolate tart.
can I just say his tips were longer than his fucking
They
method?
really were. They actually were. Don't get in a scramble and little wobble is more than the 4 words that he gave them. So chocolate tart, smooth shiny filling, berries and edible flowers on top, and a sweet short crust pastry base. 2.5 hours. And the method is make Darren's chocolate tart. And
And at this point, everyone in the shed suddenly became Canadian.
Yep.
We were in the pavilion.
I am saluting right now, and I am saying that is a beautiful ode to Bruno.
Yep.
That is an ode to Bruno Felddyson, the man, the myth, the legend, who has previously done that, where he's just given them a make the dish.
Yes.
That's it.
I loved this because, like, as I said, every pastry chef should have a tart recipe ready
Yep.
to go, and I thought it's fair to pull this out this early to see where those skills lie.
Yeah, I thought this was really good because, again, it's a chocolate tart, so it's not an overly complex mixture. As you said, there's not many ingredients in the actual tart mixture itself. And so what they're basically is asking you to do is make a short crust pastry, make a basic chocolate filling.
Yep.
Like, it didn't make it complicated.
No.
There was no complex ratio. It was just make this, then make this.
Yep. And, see that little bit of extra, put some decoration in a crescent moon shape.
Put Jaden in a situation where he has to work out where to put a strawberry. The amount of care that man put into placing the strawberry, might I add. He's like, where would I put a strawberry? So I love that Melissa is so panicky about not having recipes that she then wrote a recipe on the sheet. In the gap, she got a marker and she wrote a recipe.
I think that's smart, like I often have to take notes, particularly as I'm getting older, to remind myself what I'm doing. So,
Now,
but I did like how she's like, I'm going to hand this back to Darren.
give this to Darren at the end.
Method. Yeah.
Now, I noticed when people were rolling their pastries out and putting them in the tin, I noticed a couple of them that I thought were a bit thicker. Jaden was the one I noticed, but there were 2 or 3 others which were really thick when they went in. I'm like, oh, surely they took them out and like... No. As we found out, there were a lot of them that went short on the outside, but really thick on the base. And that's the bit that always undercooks. So I was really intrigued by the fact that they didn't go for a really thin base.
Well, I guess, you're trying to get that balance of not having it too thick, but also not having it too thin so it cracks and then the middle spills out everywhere.
Yeah, but that's part of what Darren's looking for in this technique.
I know. That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, some people are probably like, maybe a little bit thicker. Down where it's wicker. Under the speed.
Down where it's wicker?
I don't know.
Who's made of... No, we're not. Moving on. Bees, not the bees.
Not the bees.
So, Molly was trying to... Well, she said her idea was... And I liked Molly's idea. I thought it was actually the smart one. So, she said, normally, the idea is I'd under-bake it blind. So that then when I put the mixture in and bake it again, I'm not over-baking it because it's a little bit blonder than I would normally want it.
Yep.
Because I'm working out what the cooking time is for the actual tart.
Smart.
I thought that was clever.
Yeah.
Now they go in and make the chocolate sort of custard filling. Now Jason has a problem with this. It's unfortunate for Jason. He's making his mixture and he was so worried about the curdling, and I get that because it's very easy to do scrambled eggs. He was so worried about curdling the mixture that he had it really low, and as a result, it wasn't combining.
Yeah.
So then he suddenly realised that everyone else was about to put theirs in and he was not close. So he had to crank the heat.
Yeah.
So that put Jason sort of behind everyone else, which was kind of why he got the result that he got in this challenge was he was still mixing. Everyone else had put their pies in the oven and he was still going. But we were distracted by this. By Jaden. who was then filling his pie case, his tart case. He had the strainer out, and you got some of the sexiest talk and some of the most "come here, I'd like to take you out on a date" conversations you could ever possibly get from a single individual. As Jaden went, "Woo, sexy. Speak to me, chocolate tart with no recipe. Let's talk." And I'm like...
Is that his Tinder move?
This is a man going stir crazy, folks. This is a man who's been locked up in private accommodation and only seeing a tent that is a shed.
Yes.
And this is a man gets lonely. It's Australian tart, not American pie.
Oh my god! This one time at Bake Off.
What a movie! Australian tart. Will Darren Purchase sitting there with him at the end of it, going, "We'll just tell Rachel that you ate it all."
That's the second American Pie reference I've had today.
Really?
Yeah, the first one, because I went to the movies with my sisters today. We went and saw Beetlejuice. Yes. And turns out my older sister's taken up the drums.
What?
Michelle's doing drum lessons. And I'm very impressed with her. She's like, it's all electronic now. I've got an electronic setup and it's on my headphones. I think she's doing it because she's like, I need to keep my brain active and whatever else. And she's like, was this all Sudoku? And I fall asleep doing Sudoku. But she's like, I'm playing Highway to Hell, blah, blah, blah. And Catherine's like, oh, you're going to join a band? She goes, oh, I think I'm going to go to a band camp. And we looked at her, she's like, I need to get a t-shirt with a flute on it.
Oh.
So, yeah,
anyway,
that's my sisters rocking out.
So then we all guessed the baking time, and everyone guessed somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes was roughly what they were guessing.
Yeah.
Now, Melissa at this point suggested that they needed to dance the wobble. And they cut to Ryan, and Ryan looked at her with a look that said, there is not a chance on this or any other planet that I am moving on camera. Ryan was just like, nope.
That is some interesting trauma that was, like where did that come from? Because that came from a deep place of pain.
Did it come from a church house?
Did it come from a schoolhouse?
An outhouse? Were you on a highway number 19? Was everyone keeping that city very clean? So this is where we sort of got the last part of this. Everyone else took theirs out and no major disasters.
No.
Molly's looked like it had a bit of a crack in the side of it, which then never came up again.
No.
And you could sort of see it when they did the pan across them at the table, that there'd been a bit of an issue with the outside of her, but it never came up.
Probably because it didn't need to. Like, it didn't.
I didn't think it was massive, but normally they would mention if there was a split in the case somewhere.
That's true, yeah.
That is true. I'm not saying it was a problem in the judging. It's just, I think that it was just, it was just really interesting to me. They all sort of arranged their fruits, said some more than others, Jaden. I think he placed every bit of fruit individually.
Look, he was really into that tart. He didn't want to disappoint.
He made a commitment
to that tart.
He made a commitment to that tart, and he was going to follow that.
He's like, I'm not going to ghost you.
No.
I am not going to just stop talking.
We're here connected. For you.
We've swiped right on each other, and I'm going to make sure your strawberries are placed.
I'm going to take you foraging.
I'm going to take you down to Strawberry Town. I don't know.
Gonna take you down to Strawberry Town.
That's what all the kids are saying.
That's exactly what they're all saying.
It's not mid, it's Strawberry Town.
Now, Jason's unfortunately came out of the oven with 5 minutes to go. You could just see he was scrambling.
Yeah, but good on him for getting it up.
He was scrambling, and not in the way that he was worried about scrambling earlier.
He didn't scramble earlier, but he sure was scrambling now.
So, the judging. Ryan was the first one up. Looked pretty good. The mixture was filled all the way to the top, so that looked really good. But when they cut it, the reason was the base was too thick, so it needed more chocolate.
Yeah.
Jason, the pastry unfortunately was still a bit raw. The filling was rich, but the whole thing was a bit thick. Arvin, very good shine. Filling was sensational, but again, the base was a bit too thick. Molly,
it's a real Kardashian effect, isn't it?
See, Molly, they said good job with the case. And great flavour on the chocolate, which is why I brought up the crack
and
thing.
go the people out there laughing at my Kardashian thick base joke.
Melissa, the only thing I said to Melissa was the chocolate cream was over, and then Darren goes...
I was referring to butts, for those that didn't get that.
Melissa, they said the chocolate cream was over, and Darren said, I did that the first time I made a chocolate tart, and I had a recipe. Dimmy, they said good tart shell, chocolate had great flavour. Adrian, they said the pastry was really good, the chocolate was smooth and it was very silky. Lorena, they said good golden colour, the chocolate flavour was good, but it was a little bit over. Jaden, good colour on the pastry, but the base again was too thick. Not enough chocolate, so it sort of had gone a bit solid and it was a bit over. And Elliot, thin pastry, chocolate cream was fantastic, maybe a minute over in the cooking. Mm-hmm. So from last to first, Melissa, Jaden, Jason, Dimmy, Lorena, Molly, Ryan, Elliot, Arvin.
But guess Adrian. Who was king of the tarts?
Adrian,
king of the tarts.
Regent
of the tarts. Monarch of the tarts. It's the new
Monarch
ABC
series
dramedy.
Replacing Monarch of the Glen.
Yeah.
Monarch of the Tarts.
Hi, I'm former Bake Off hopeful and America's sweetheart, Aaron Horton. Have you heard the good word yet? That's right. I'm here to talk to you about Davidson Plum. It may be back to basics week, but there's nothing basic about the luscious flavour of Davidson Plum. These pie scrapers pale in comparison to the deliciousness and awe-inspiring opulence of Davidson Plum. Some people may call it a cult, but those people are heretics. So join me at the altar of flavour. Worship the Davidson Plum. Davidson Plum is love. Davidson Plum is light. Davidson Plum. One of us. Paid for by Big Plum.
So the showstopper. A pie scraper. I think this challenge began with the pun and worked backwards.
Look, I'm okay
We're here
with that.
for it.
I'm okay with that.
Like, if any podcast is going to be great with this, it's us. Like,
it is.
We are puns. So, vertical, gravity-defying stacked pies or pie or pies. They said stacked pie/pies. I don't know why they said stacked pie/pies, because one pie is not stacked. Unless they meant loaded and meant like it's 25 centimetres high on its own, in which case, good luck cooking the bastard. Yeah. Now, it must be 25 centimetres high. That was the brief. The display must be 25 centimetres. Mm-hmm. 4.5 hours.
Yep.
So they did the judges' corner. They asked who was on top and who was the bottom. They said Arvin and Adrian were up top, and they said that Jaden and Melissa were both in a bit of trouble this week. Mm-hmm. I really liked the way that Natalie used Elliot for the what are they talking about? And it was great. Where she goes, what do you think they're talking about? And the way that Elliot was ready for they're probably talking about the way that Darren was a boy soprano when he was younger. And that's like, still is from what I've heard.
So when he's screaming at the bees.
It's in high soprano.
It's in high soprano. What are you doing, bees? Are you down there? Making the honey, it's so frustrating. I'm assuming that's what...
That's exactly it.
Yeah. It was like you're there.
So Adrian and Molly then announced they were going to start a pie cushion band.
Yeah.
So we had pie cushion.
There's some quality puns.
There were. And look, Elliot's there for the singing. With Darren backing up, obviously, in a high soprano.
Obviously, yeah, when you need those high, what's it called? What is it?
Harmonies.
Harmonies. High harmonies. Yes,
exactly. Now... I'm focusing on the pie cushion band and the awesomeness of that pun.
Right.
And the reason is because it delays me having to talk about Melissa. Because she was making a chocolate pecan ruin. And that was what she called the bake. Mm. And the reason it's a chocolate pecan... No. The reason it's a chocolate pecan ruin is the matcha. Because, ladies and gentlemen, for the first fucking time this series, bingo, ladies and gentlemen, on your game cards, matcha. And of all people, I have praised you, Melissa. I have treasured your baking, Melissa. Matcha. I'm hurt. I'm cut. I'm devastated.
Do you think she was taking a leaf out of Dimmy's book, because like she put pigs on the outside, so you knew there were pigs on the inside. So she just put some ruin
on the outside,
so you know it was ruin.
I thought
it
was the bitterness on the outside, because apparently, like, if you think about the flavour profile, and Darren talked about this, chocolate, dark chocolate, matcha, salted caramel, and pecans. That's a very bitter combination.
It's a lot there. It's a lot going on, and I get that she was trying to adjust it to the Australian palate, but I think Australians, we kind of like a pecan pie, but we need it cut with something like, not matcha.
I think she went the complete opposite direction. So, because she was like, American sweetness is different to Australian sweetness.
Yeah.
It is. We don't like sickly. But that doesn't mean that everything needs to be as ridiculously bitter as you can make it. Just dial it back half a bit.
Yeah.
We also don't use a lot of Rice Krispies and things because we're civilised. So, Adrian refers to the fact that he once had a Year 8 teacher sit him down and tell him he'd never be a pastry chef because his hands were too hot for pastry, basically.
Go you, Adrian. Sticking it to those teachers.
I mean,
we don't need no education. We don't need no one telling us that we'll never be pastry chefs.
Education is very important, people, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
Spoken by the educator.
It's paying for our house.
Yeah, true, okay.
Apple pie campfire.
Education is important.
Yeah, apple pie campfire.
Don't get me wrong, but teachers shouldn't be hating on their students.
Shoe rocks.
If your student comes to you and says, you know what, I want to be an astronaut, and you're like, 1, you're afraid of heights, 2, you know, you're not that great at maths, you don't say that to them. You say, oh, cool, so how are you going to get there? And just just encourage them, let them go on that journey, because they might not end up being an astronaut, but you know what they might end up doing? Discovering a new, say, way to have a tea ceremony in space.
Well done. I'm worried about this because...
What?
My counterpoint to that is if you say to them, how do you feel like you're going to get to space?
Yeah.
At lunchtime, they're invariably going to blow someone up in the playground trying.
Why?
Because they're going to see fire and go, that shit's cool, and light someone.
No, that's not...
Because the kids who want to be an astronaut know how to get there. They're smart enough to know the pathway.
Yeah.
However, I do agree with you on one thing.
Yeah.
They are the ones who will come up with the Japanese tea ceremony in zero gravity. It's those damn fat gloves.
Yes.
That's one for the tripod fans out there. Anyway, apple pie campfire, shoe rocks, chocolate logs, and an orange Swiss meringue flame.
I wish I had this in my Girl Guide days.
Oh, we've been lucky.
Rather than
actually
baked
s'mores
cake. No, the s'mores were good, but this looked amazing. Adrian, well done. And well done interpreting the brief in a way that you're still getting the stacked pies and the height, but making it...
You had a shell. It was really
shell.
cool.
Yeah, I thought
now,
it was good.
Lorena, before we get to what happened with her, and we'll get there in a minute, she was making mixed berry and mango carousel with a lattice top and prancing unicorns. Now, my thing was I immediately went to Sideshow Luke Perry. What are you making, Lorena? A 19th century carousel. Then when her carousel didn't work, they could have fired her out of a cannon.
Yes.
Like, that was the solution for Sideshow Luke Perry.
And I like I'm really hoping in future years we will get to see Darren purchase on a carousel. We've had Maggie Beer.
We've seen Maggie Beer on one.
We've seen Matt Moran.
Yep. Maggie Beer on a carousel is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in person.
Yep.
I love that moment. Arvin was poaching the pear as a whole, not in pieces. His thing was that you want to overdo the individual pieces.
Yeah.
It was almond sweet crust pies filled with frangipane and cream cheese. Now, it was all about this Filipino custom and tradition about literally community helping people moving house.
But I like how it's a literal moving of house.
Literally.
It's not like we're going to bring some boxes over, maybe a bottle of wine.
No,
and a pizza.
everyone under a corner. Everyone under a corner.
I mean, the closest I've seen, remember in the olden days where people were like, I'm going to buy an old Queenslander from Queensland and drive it down and plonk it somewhere else?
And then Muriel turned up and you're like, oh, hi, Muriel.
Yes.
So, but that was actually before, and they have obviously been now. You can buy houses in pieces, and they put them together, and that's more common.
Yeah.
But yeah, they used to. You're right. The trend was in the early '90s, like late '90s.
Yeah.
Was old Queenslanders with the balcony, the big veranda and stuff being picked up and moved because people wanted the land.
Yeah, like it wasn't uncommon.
no.
I saw it several times.
Yeah. Now Jaden was making a bark hut with yellow, peach, and quandong, with a short crust totem pole to support. And it was really good use of the support structure. And the idea was, again, having the cake, it had to be self-supporting. So the making the short crust totems to support the pie was really cool.
Except I think he set himself up for a bit of a challenge with aunties. So from what I understand, when Aboriginal people get together and, you've got to look after your elders and stuff, and the aunties will be expecting a tea, they're going to be expecting some short crust totem poles. But in their totems.
Yeah, you've made that. You've
set that bar now for you, Jaden.
Now,
don't disappoint.
At this point, Lorena takes the pies out of the oven, and
you don't want those side eyes or the coming at you.
No, you don't. At this point, Lorena took her pies out of the oven and looked at them and was like, "Oh my god, that's raw." And you can see the butter was leaking out and stuff. And she worked out that obviously there'd been an electrical fault and the oven had stopped working. Now, we mentioned the other week about ovens, but what we were talking, this has not happened. What we were talking about was the other week, we were talking about the ovens, was in the old kitchen before the Smeg appliances.
Yeah. The doors would bounce open.
The doors would bounce open, and so you couldn't keep a consistent heat. Now, obviously, they've redone the shed a number of times since then. But this has never happened. And that's, again, they're temporary ovens. This is going to be a thing.
Look, shit happens. You were baking your watermelon cake when our oven blew up.
And our oven blew up halfway through it, and I was trying to work out why I couldn't cook the damn thing.
And isn't it funny when you talk to people and they're like, they're like, oh, I've got to replace the oven. It's like, what were you cooking? What were you in the middle of cooking when it went?
Well, it never goes at the end of a cook. It always goes in the middle of one.
Yeah. Well, you don't start off trying to cook something and the oven's just not working.
No, exactly.
It's just kind of like, no,
in the middle.
It, I'm done.
It's like when my smoker. It's like my smoker. My smoker gave up halfway through smoking 3 pieces of brisket. Anyway, Elliot was making pork pies.
Yum.
Now, pork pies, but with an egg in the middle of the pork pie.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
So Central Station was his idea, and again using the hot water crust pastry, so a traditional pastry.
You know what you needed underneath it though? You need to serve it on a very long tunnel.
Yep, the really long tunnel
with echoing Who music, combined with a young rapper.
Yep.
Combined with a guy with an electric keyboard.
Yes, and what you also then needed
and
to
a
do...
guitar busker.
What you then needed to do as the bake went on was add platforms. And just keep adding platforms and keep adding platforms and keep... Don't know where they're going, but just keep adding platforms.
Yeah.
There are at least 7 platforms at Central Station that I'm convinced do nothing.
You know what I learnt today? And I'm so sad. So my stepfather is... he worked for Sydney Trains for... in the olden days.
Yes.
Who's been a station master. He's also probably a bit on the spectrum, but he knows the timetables and where trains leave from inside out. They've changed.
Yeah.
And also, they haven't, because they don't have the boards anymore. You've got to look it up upstairs. He wasn't able to check, so he went to the normal, thing, like platform and stuff that he knew at Central Station by heart.
Yep.
No train. No train going his way.
No.
Oh, I just felt for him in that moment. It's kind of like sunrise, sunset, cats in the cradle.
Yes, we have no bananas.
Yes.
We have no bananas today. Moving on.
Bette Midler in the corner singing, I think it's going to rain today.
Moving on. Molly was then making blood orange
The Beatles singing, what's that one?
Helter Skelter. Anyway.
Sure, Helter Skelter, that's the one.
It's about the Sydney train network. Anyway, Molly was making blood orange curd pies with Swiss meringue and raspberry. Ryan was making fruit mince pies as a Christmas tree with a pecan short crust tree. Now, Ryan said that that this smelled a lot like Christmas. Nat went, yes, it smells like family arguments. And Ryan's like, that hits too close to home.
It would smell like sleeping uncles.
I can do a fruit mince pie. I'm not massive on them.
No, I find them to be, in theory, more delicious than what they are.
It's really interesting. I find that fruit mince pies are less delicious than you expect they're going to be, and pork pies are more delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Because you think about the idea of a traditional pork pie and like the gelatin and the kind,
like,
no, pork pies are far more delicious than you expect.
Yeah.
And I think that they're probably less delicious than you expect.
Yeah.
Now, Jason was making a chicken curry lotus pond. And I love the story behind this one, where his grandparents met when his grandfather was stationed in India during World War II.
Oh.
They fell in love.
Yep.
They decided to get married, and they moved to Australia.
That's awesome. I wonder if they got married in India with a traditional Indian wedding and how that went down.
I mean, my biggest disappointment about this whole thing, though, was, again, he was making an Indian curry, and he was making, apparently, it smelt amazing. It looked like it smelt amazing. But there were peas.
Yeah, but we know this. Peas aren't, like, I'm pretty sure peas aren't.
Real.
No, they're not traditional. Like, they're not an Indian thing.
I mean,
like,
they put them in samosas now, but I don't believe they are.
I don't think. Like, lentils, yes. You know, there are other legumes. Perfectly fine.
Now,
why peas? It's like fried rice. Like, we didn't need to put peas in those.
So, Dimmy was making pork pies too.
Yeah.
But Dimmy was making fennel and apple chutney to go with it. But Dimmy, the early childhood educator, decided to mock the pig by covering the outside with the three little pigs. Now,
but this is like, remember the butchers that would have like a pig as its mascot?
Well,
in a butcher's apron with a
there's-
little.
You know, there are examples of that, like chicken shops where like there's a chicken advertising in the chicken shop, and you're like, why? Why are you doing that?
Delicious.
You know, it's the Simpsons joke about the pig going, the best meat's in the rump. But
Or when you used to go to Franklin's
Fresh, that was where I was going.
Yes.
So we've talked about the Franklin's Fresh story before. For anyone from Miscellaneous City, you will have probably known this if you were around in the late 90s, early 2000s. The Franklin's Fresh chain had singing cows and pigs in the deli, and you could press buttons and they would sing. Again, my favourite being the "Welcome to the deli, what'll it be today?" And then the cow would go, "Just a half pound of your best mince." And the pig would go, "All right, there you go." Now, a couple of things. First of all, what a brief conversation that was. And secondly, and far more importantly, why is the cow asking for mince off a pig?
Cannibal cow.
Yeah, but why is the pig the one serving the cannibal? There's a whole bunch of questions that were never answered.
Cannibal cow.
Are we comfortable?
In that reality, then, does that make the pig a murderer? Like, are they because it'd be like going to a deli and going, "I'd like half a pound of human meat."
I've just worked it out. I've worked out what Franklin's Fresh was.
A front?
Franklin's Fresh is the aftermath of the book Animal Farm. What happened with Snowball and Napoleon, and then when Napoleon takes over? What happened after on the farm? Because four legs good, two legs bad became 2 legs better. And then, by the end, the humans and the pigs are together celebrating, and the animals couldn't tell who was who. So did they then sell everyone else on the farm for food?
Obviously, this is it.
Soylent Green is cows. Anyway.
From 1984 to 1994.
Anyway, Arvin was then trying to help Lorena to finish off.
George Orwell's Franklin's Fresh.
So Arvin was trying to help Lorena finish off, which was really good again. And yeah, baker helps another baker. Tick. I also love when they finished their bakes and Jaden looked at everybody and went, "No one breathe at all."
This is staying up.
So perilous. So, Molly. They loved how it was a dynamic construction. Rachel liked how she used blood orange as well with the raspberry. Darren was impressed that it was standing.
I just thought it needed a little leprechaun.
Well, they said that they thought the filling was probably...
Or at least rainbow bright.
They thought the filling was probably a little bit too soft, but it was still great overall. I was interested in the fact that she seemed to get the height through that waterfall display rather than necessarily the pies.
Yeah.
And also, I thought that there was use of dowel in one of the pies to prop it up, which wasn't mentioned, but that's just, what I saw. Jason, they said it looked amazing. Rachel loved the curry. The filling was juicy and aromatic, and they said the pastry was really well baked. Arvin, they said just joyful. The construction was outstanding, especially using the sweet crust, and because that's a really difficult one to do it with. Flavours were delicious, and they said the pear in particular was perfect.
Yeah.
Jaden, they said it wasn't really a vertical pie as it was held up by dowels. And, fair enough.
It's the Antonio thing.
Yes.
What's a panettone?
What's a panettone? Yeah, exactly.
What's the...
So, flavours were great, but Rachel wanted a bit of a syrup with Jaden's one. Melissa, they said the smell was delicious, but Darren said it looked a bit messy in places, and while the caramel had a great shine, it was really bitter.
Yeah.
I think we can openly say that as much as we praised Melissa last episode, and
This wasn't
probably
her
should have
week.
been Star Baker, she was very fortunate this week, I think.
Yeah, look, I think Lorena's oven...
I think if Lorena had got the carousel pie up and it had been decent, Melissa might have gone.
Yeah.
It was a really tight one this week. Adrian, Rachel thought it was really creative. Darren absolutely loved the flavour. The pastry crumbled well. They couldn't stop raving about Adrian's. Dimmy, like Rachel's like, I get the story. And I'm like, well, of course you do. You talked about it at the bench and you understood it. The colours were very dim, as they put it. Darren loved the filling, and the seasoning on the pork was really good.
I did have a little moment when I'm looking at it, and all the people's heads were different colours, and I just heard the Among Us kind of noises going on in the background. And then it's like, we're helping you move house out of the airlock.
Ryan, now they said it looked good, but the pies were on a cake stand, which wasn't really in the spirit of the brief. And Darren was right. That's not what it was. It wasn't. It was about stacked pies, and it was about freestanding, not stacking them on a cake stand.
Yeah.
So Rachel then went ho ho ho, which everyone nearly fell over for. No one expected that.
No.
And it came from absolutely nowhere.
I'm loving these little Rachel kooky moments.
Rachel kooky moments. They said the flavours were excellent, but Darren then reiterated, you've got to start focusing on the brief. And fair enough. That was an absolutely fair comment. Lorena, they acknowledged the time issue. They said the jammy filling was super glossy. Then Darren started critiquing it like it was a normal pie.
Yeah.
And said the pastry's a bit uneven and it looks like it's a bit burnt on this side, which was probably because you turned the oven right up. No shit!
She was trying to get something cooked.
Yeah.
And on the plate.
And they then commented, well, it's a fantastic job to get this up given the circumstances. You could have just said that.
And I'm assuming, because everyone else needed to use their ovens in between, she would have had,
Less time, so you had to crank it up.
Yeah.
Elliot, they were in awe of how it stood. The egg in the middle looked perfect. The pork had great texture. Darren complained the egg was slightly over.
Yeah, and that is... Yeah, you can't. Not in that circumstance.
No. But overall, they said it was absolutely outstanding. Now, the star baker this week was Adrian.
Public transport never tasted so good.
I'm going to give a shout out to Elliot. I thought Elliot was really close.
Yeah.
So, but obviously Adrian. Apparently this week the technical mattered. Apparently. Who knows? However, as they said, they believed in the idea of everyone needed an even playing field. Lorena had not been given an even playing field because of the issue.
Yeah.
So as a result, no one goes home this week. However, next week is a double elimination.
Whew.
I think that's absolutely fair. And you know what?
Absolutely.
I think that is the right call. I don't think there's another decision they could have made. I don't think you could have sent Lorena home off the back of something like that.
No.
And also then you couldn't have sent another baker home because they would have gone, well,
Yeah.
I got all the bakes up. So...
Yeah,
And Lorena's first bake wasn't spectacular. There'd been issues with the purple and stuff. So it was a really difficult situation, and I think they handled it well.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job.
Absolutely. And look, Natalie did great work.
Yep.
Holding down the shed.
Yep.
The fort, so to speak.
And I think that overall, again, one of the things I think we've sort of commented on in the first 3 weeks is that I think the quality of baking this series has been outstanding. I think there's been some genuinely awesome bakes.
Yeah, and I loved to see everyone's take on the pie scraper. I think we just need more pun-based bakes.
Exactly. So that's going to do us for this week. Thank you, everyone, again. We've really enjoyed the feedback we've got for the first couple of weeks. It's been really, really heartening. Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for commenting. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Now, if we're going to build a real pie scraper, we're going to have to start cordoning off an area in the inner city. My thing is Barangaroo's got to go.